Viewers, welcome to the Personal Injury Law Show. My name's Tony Carbone. I'm a lawyer of nearly 30 years experience. With me tonight I've got Nunzio a partner in the law firm.
Tony, viewers, welcome.
And Vivian Ryan, a lawyer come marketing guru. Good evening, Vivian.
Hi, Tony. Hi, viewers.
Viewers, tonight's topic is about vicious/dangerous dogs. We've got Moira Rayner on the show. She's been on the show in the past. She's a board member for Lawyers for Animals. So please stay tuned for that.
Tony, before we kick off, what's in the news?
There's been a lot of stories in the news, but the one that's really intriguing for me, and we start with this, RMIT professor was unfairly sacked, got her job back. Tell us the facts.
Well, basically, the professor from RMIT in this case was in the vial of a redundancy, was made redundant, and they say, or RMIT alleged, for financial reasons. But effectively what came out was that there was some bullying and harassment, intimidation that was occurring obviously prior to the redundancy, and that was, I suppose they caveated the redundancy, but they were scared about the allegations of bullying, Tony.
Viv, it was a sham redundancy. What they were trying to do was, in effect, make her redundant because she put in a complaint for bullying and harassment.
Not really legal, is it?
No. But the best part about it was the judge's comments. What did the judge say about if she had to lodge a claim for compensation?
Well, the judge said, Tony, that if the plaintiff had sought damages, he certainly would have been awarded a far excessive amount. I think it was in the order of $1 million
to 1.9 million.
Tony, that's huge. In
it is huge.
This day and age, that's big damages.
And that was under the Fair Work legislation, Nunz?
Yes.
And adverse action.
Adverse action.
Yeah.
So, look, I think it's a good story in the sense that, employers got to be careful that, if there are issues in terms of bullying, harassment, intimidation, don't take the easy way and just, get rid of these employees by way of redundancy.
I think the message for employers is, if your intentions aren't all above board and it can be proved, it's going to cost you a lot of money because the federal court doesn't have a limit to what they can award Nunz.
Wow, that's really interesting. I didn't know that.
It's extraordinary. You can really be severely damaged as an organisation. Let's keep moving. Tell us about the pie case, Nunz.
Well, this is a case that happened in New South Wales, and this particular plaintiff made a claim against, I think it was a Ridges Hotel in Illawarra, for damages, for injuries that she sustained when she slipped on a pie on a dance floor.
She hurt her cruciate ligament,
yeah,
is that right?
Knee was one of the big injuries, and I think back as well. And look, she received damages of up to, I think, $431,000. So it's a big award for a public liability matter, Tony. It's fairly big damages award.
She had nasty injuries, didn't she?
She certainly did. But my question to you, Nunzio, is she's a single mother, I think unemployed at the time of the injury. She was seeking damages in excess of $1 million at the time.
1.43 million, Viv.
Yeah, look, her position was that, because she had, I think, 2 or 3 young children, that once her youngest, I think, attained the age of 2 or 3, that she was going to return back to work, and the judge didn't believe all of that, and obviously she didn't get the amount of damages she initially sought, but anything over $1 million is unheard of these days, Tony.
It's very
difficult.
Very rare in public liability unless you've got serious long-term medical expenses and care.
Yeah, but look, it's a good decision, and basically the judge found that this Ridges Hotel shouldn't have served food on the dance floor because obviously
people are dancing,
and had no system of ensuring that if there was a pie on the floor that would be cleaned up. And look, I think it's a good decision.
Just on that, are a lot of hotels adhering to that policy of no serving of drinks or food whilst dancing is actually occurring?
Hotels, clubs, and bars, unfortunately, they don't.
Well, you've got an example yourself. You did the case where the lady was on the dance floor. They had tables on the dance floor. The judge said if you can prove that there was tables on the dance floor, she'll win.
That's right. Look, and hotel, clubs and bars, they're in a difficult position because they obviously need to create that ambience, but at the same time, they don't have the staff and numbers to make sure everything's getting cleaned up and adhered to.
And Viv, if you're eating on the dance floor...
Which I do often.
Food dropping goes on the dance floor, it's really an accident waiting to happen, don't you think?
Well, absolutely, as proven in this case.
Okay, let's keep moving. Viv, the doctors in this jurisdiction and all around the world do a brilliant job. That's the starting point.
Absolutely.
However, we've had a lot of instances where there's been misdiagnosis. Tell us the case of this lady that lost her life when she suffered a stroke.
Yeah, this case is really, really tragic. A Victorian lady who had just had a baby, I think a fortnight prior. She started suffering headaches. She admitted herself back to hospital. They did some CT scans. The scans came back as seemingly normal. She continued to have headaches, went back to the doctors who did some more scanning, and at that point realised there was some abnormality. But the problem here was that the initial scan didn't, actually showed that there was some issue on the scan, and they didn't actually, they classified it as normal.
Yeah.
Was that
Viv,
correct? Yeah.
She needed an MRI scan. That's the reality.
There's two aspects. One is that the actual first scan that when the husband and family got told that it was normal actually indicated there might have been a small hemorrhage. That's when the investigation sort of commenced, and then before she died, she went to the hospital 3 days before with headaches, complaining of severe headaches. She'd done MRI and a range of tests, and because she's also complaining of sore eyes,
blurry vision.
And look, all the signs were there, and nothing got done.
It's a real shame.
It's a resource issue, isn't it, guys?
Well, is it, or what sort of claim then does the family have?
Tony, I think this one goes beyond resource issue because they did the scan initially and obviously identified it incorrectly. I think this is just clear-cut negligence.
This is right up your alley. What can the family sue for?
Well, look, I said under a medical negligence claim pursuant to the Wrongs Act, I said you can sue for nervous shock or post-traumatic stress disorder, and depending if she was also a money earner for the family, you can sue for the dependency loss and so forth. So a lot of rights open to this family, and look, based on the facts in this article, I think that negligence would be proven, Tony.
Nervous shock?
Yeah, for sure. And look, the threshold under the Act is that you need to have a psychological impairment of greater than 10%. And look, you've lost your wife and mother of three.
No amount of money is going to bring that back.
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah. So.
Vivian, this is right up your alley because you're a mother of two very young children. A salon gets the baby blues. What's that about?
Well, essentially what happened recently in Victoria, a woman was getting her hair done at a hairdressing salon, and at the time she was breastfeeding her young child, and her stylist had asked her to cover up. She obviously felt offended by that. I mean, this is a really natural thing for all of us to do. So there's been claims that perhaps she's been discriminated against. It's a really difficult one because obviously, the naturalness of breastfeeding should be embraced by, our society. But a spokeswoman for the ABA had said potentially if the stylist had actually outlined the reasons why she wanted her to cover up, i.e. for health reasons, for safety reasons for the child, then perhaps this incident would not have occurred.
Well, the other side of the ledger, you've got hair flying around the place, you've got sprays, you've got colours, you've got all sorts of products. I'm almost on the side of a salon in this case.
Look, to be honest, I probably agree with you, Tony, but at the same time, as indicated by the spokesman there, all the hairdresser had to say is that, look, it's not appropriate this time because of these reasons. Either you go with or you don't.
But I think, unfortunately, what happened in this case, the stylist took offence to her breastfeeding, which is a separate issue altogether. But
could have easily been avoided, I think, this one.
We've got to go to a sponsors break. Next time round, I want to come back to this issue about emergency calls, how there's so many things going wrong. And there's also an interesting article about a jogger being mauled by a dangerous dog. But I want to take that topic up with Moira Rayner, so please stay tuned after the break. Viewers, welcome back to the show. As promised before the break, we've got an episode on vicious/dangerous dogs. We're very fortunate tonight to have Moira Rayner, who's a board member for Lawyers for Animals and former Equal Opportunity Commissioner, and you've had a host of other titles, Moira, as long as my arm. Tell us a bit about your organisation.
Lawyers for Animals was set up around about 8-9 years ago in order to provide a voice for animals who are, of course, often exploited, neglected or maltreated. Were originally established to provide some policy input into laws about farm animals, overseas exports of live animals, and more recently we've come to focus a bit on domestic animals because we're getting an awful lot of requests for advice on that matter.
Moira, we're going to go through some of the legislation and then come back to what your organisation does. Nunzio, there's the Domestic Animals Act 1994.
Yep.
That gives definitions and defines what is restricted breeds and all sorts of...
Look, effectively, Tony, and look, in 2011, I suppose following the tragic death of Ian Chol, who obviously died by a dog attack, there was amendments made in 2011, and that's where I suppose the point of contention comes in, and we'll have a large conversation with Moira about this. And it talks about the obviously restricted breed dogs, what's defined as a menacing dog, dangerous dog, and those kind of things. So, the 2011 changes particularly have been, I suppose, the most controversial and of the most focused. And I'm sure you take that position, Moira?
Yes, we don't think they've been very effective.
Moira, what's a restricted breed?
Well, there's a list of them. You can read them out more than me because I don't actually know how to pronounce some of them, but they include pit bulls and American Staffordshire
and
dogs.
Japanese Tosa or Tosa, I don't know. Fila Brasilio, Dogo Argentino, Perro del Preso Canario. I don't even know what these breeds are.
Well, most of us haven't seen any of them because they're pretty rare.
And Nunz, there's also definitions on menacing dogs. What's a menacing dog?
Well, a menacing dog, by virtue of legislation, is one that's maybe have attacked somebody or caused non-serious injury. And if your dog has been defined as menacing, any time it's effectively, I suppose, in the public or outside your residential home, it must be muzzled. And also, you said if it's not, you can that equates to a fine. I think
of $2,240. Moira, what's a dangerous dog?
A dangerous dog under the legislation
Yes.
is a dog that's been declared menacing and has committed to other offences, or which has actually seriously hurt another person or property. And in the circumstances we're talking about, it can be simply a dog which has rushed at another person, been declared menacing, and then done it again. It's a discretionary choice by the council as to whether or not it's declared menacing or dangerous.
Nunzio, some people would say that by the time a dog's been declared menacing, the horse is bolted.
Oh, look, menacing now, I think I actually like the fact that there's two levels of the menacing, then there's dangerous. Because menacing says when it, hasn't caused any sort of serious injury, may have attacked, but obviously, no dire consequences. And I think you sort of get a shot at it. And if you don't, then it leads to the dangerous, the next level, which is the dangerous dog. So I like the two different levels. I'm not sure what your position is, Tony. What do you think?
Look, I just think that the legislation is very convoluted. I can't follow it. But can I give you this Facebook comment made by Alicia Appleby, one of the viewers, Moira? She says, Alicia brings up a point that any dog can attack and that dog attacks are not restricted to one specific breed only. So
that's my position too.
Is it?
The American Bar Association in August last year joined an increasing number of American states and research bodies calling for the abolition of breed-specific legislation for two basic reasons. One is it doesn't work. You cannot predict the dangerousness of a dog by its supposed breed, and particularly since most of this legislation doesn't actually have the capacity to prove a dog's of a specific breed. You cannot predict a dog's behaviour by the way it looks. What's happening in Victoria, for example, is a lot of dogs being seized because they look like pit bulls by people who wouldn't have a bloody clue what a pit bull is, actually. So this is something that we need to...
You say that get rid of the definitions and you just
Look at
judge a dog based on their behaviour.
Dogs based on their behaviour.
So would a Chihuahua, whatever they're called, be dangerous?
Well, I've got a Chihuahua.
And?
It has bitten two people. As far as I'm concerned, it's as dangerous as any other dog.
Has it been reclassified?
Especially since it looks cute.
Has it been reclassified?
Of course not. I've never done it outside my own home. It's
So
bitten people in my home.
Who did it buy? Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, snappy. These little dogs are often snappy because mostly people don't know how to treat them. You need to know how to deal with a dog. You need to be well trained.
My question is, though, the point of legislation, from what my reading of, is that to protect the community.
Yeah.
Now, if there is potential for a dog to be dangerous, why not, I suppose, ensure that before something does happen?
No, it's just on that point.
But we do.
And Moira,
Not well enough.
the law on dog bites is strict liability. What's it mean, Nunz?
Well, strict liability effectively means there's no way out. They said if you've got a dog that's been dangerous or menacing, then attacks again, that case is gone. You've lost that case.
Well, I reckon it doesn't have to be dangerous or menacing. I think if your dog's outside the house and not on a leash and not restrained, if it bites someone, you can sue.
Well,
That's
you
my
can
view,
sue,
Moira.
but there's not necessarily strict liability. Can I just point out,
Yep.
the legislation that we have in Victoria is not all that good because it allows a fair amount of argument about what is menacing, what is dangerous, and it does not provide for mandatory training of dogs or training of
Okay.
people who want to own or possess or control dogs.
Moira,
and that's necessary.
Just on that issue, Stacey Rose on Facebook, Stacey said mandatory dog ownership courses for people who own dogs and background checks on dog owners. Do you like that?
I think it's a good start, actually. I think
it?
we'll have to say that breed-specific legislation doesn't work. It's a breach of natural justice, apart from anything else, to have perfectly placid dogs put down because they look like something that we think is more dangerous than others. All dogs can be dangerous if they're wandering and in packs, and if they've never been trained or if they're frightened. Any bunch of dogs can be dangerous. We had a case recently.
We'll get to that.
We'll get there.
Nuance, do you think that dog owners, there should be mandatory checks on their background?
Look, I think that's a great idea, and I think that goes to the education side of things. I don't think that goes far enough, to be honest, in terms of protecting the wider community, but I think it's a good start. All dogs have to be registered, which is part of the Domestic
But educating
Animals
the
Act.
dog's a good start.
It's a good start,
Yeah,
but not
yeah.
enough, Tony.
Okay.
But I just want to get your views on, I suppose, the powers that the council officers have in terms of, seizing a dog, destroying a dog, the euthanasia type of thing. What's
It's
your
not
view on it?
euthanasia, they're putting down healthy dogs.
That's what they've defined it as anyway.
Yeah, well, it's not. It's destruction of an animal, which is dangerous to human beings, and let's call it what it is. I think that the big lack is the failure to understand the nature of dogs. There's no necessary training of council officers. The definition of a menacing dog, for example, is a dog which has rushed at another person or animal and has done and may have done some or no damage, but at least it isn't dangerous. It isn't serious damage. The point is that all dogs will rush up to human beings and other dogs. That's in the nature of it, but they're not necessarily menacing. It all depends on the circumstances, and it depends on whether the person who's doing the definition or the selection actually understands this. Similarly with dangerous dogs, if they do real damage to other people, fair enough, but quite often it's a
Moira, that's
pervasive
where
thing.
I disagree with you, and we've got to get a sponsors break. After the break, this is where we can dig our teeth into your views, my views, and Nunzio's views. So please stay tuned, viewers. Viewers, welcome back to the show. This is very topical when we're dealing with dog breeds and what should be classified as menacing, dangerous, etc. Let's get some case law. There's a case of Dudas and Monash City Council and Tarawa Shira and Darebin City Council. Give us the basic facts of those cases, Nuns.
No worries. Look, Tony, these are appeals from VCAT where a senior member ruled that these two particular dogs should be classified as restricted breeds under the Domestic Animals Act. And obviously it was appealed to the Supreme Court where Justice Kay made a decision and upheld those appeals and said that the senior member didn't correctly come to the correct conclusion about being a restricted breed. But the big issue though in this case was about the actual restricted breed dog legislation, and in particular how do you classify a restricted breed dog, and that's where this case is a landmark decision in that regard.
Moira, the whole thing appears convoluted to me because you look at the legislation, it's very technical, and three people could look at a particular dog based on that legislation and come back with two different conclusions.
Yeah, which is one of the main reasons the American Bar Association joined all these other research associations saying restricted breed legislation should be just gone and put away with. It doesn't work. What the case was about was whether a dog meets with a breed standard. that, in other words, looks like a pit bull, more than it doesn't look like a pit bull. Having regard to, size of withers, teeth, distance between the eyes, and all this sort of stuff. And our opinion is, as lawyers for animals, that it should be legislation based on the dog's actual history of violence.
I don't like that, Moira, because in effect you saying the dog's actual history of violence means it's got to chew my leg off first, and then you turn around and you reclassify it as being dangerous or menacing. Nuns.
Look, Moira, I must agree with Tony here in the sense. No, my turn. I must agree in the sense that so the purpose of the legislation was to protect the community.
Yeah, but this doesn't.
You can't have someone hurt and you say we fix it.
He's on a justice game, Moira.
You're misrepresenting my situation.
The purpose of the legislation is to protect the safety of the community, and the best way to do that is to
train the dogs.
Or
and the
make sure
owners.
they're muzzled.
No. Most
Collar?
dogs don't bite. A well-trained dog doesn't bite or rush at anybody. And the one thing this legislation doesn't do is require dog owners to be trained in understanding their animals and controlling their animals.
But
and that
your
is what
bitten
it is.
two people in your house. Your dog.
The dog was a traumatised dog, and the people that got
Who
bitten.
Who traumatised it?
It was a rescue dog. I got it from death row in the country.
So what happened there? Wasn't it educated, or did you not?
It had only just come from its difficult situation. Wouldn't do it now. But
Probably needs
in
treatment.
both cases, you had people who didn't understand that all dogs can bite, and she's such a cute little thing that these blokes got up very close. Each of them got very, very close and gave her a fright, and she turned around and snapped.
Moira,
now I say
I don't
that
want it
was
to make
dangerous.
it personal, but when did you find out the history of the dog after it did the damage?
Well, I knew the history of the dog,
Did you?
and I warned both people to stay away from the dog, and they both thought she was so cute they could just pick her up and cuddle her. Now, come on, this is my point. It was in my home. They were warned. They took a step which was risky, and the dog responded appropriately. And I paid for the damage, I must say. And the dog doesn't do it anymore. But the point is that all dogs can do harm. A Chihuahua, in the right circumstances, could have taken that bloke's eye out. So the breed-specific stuff is ridiculous. All dogs who are not properly managed could do harm. And I would like to see all the effort go into, if you have a dog, it must be registered, it must be microchipped, we must know where it lives, and you must have some basic training in how to
Moira,
look after that dog.
I would hazard to guess that the ones that are breed-specific that have been restricted, because of their history of attacking in the past, and there's research for that.
What
that
research?
It is, there's plenty of research.
There
I'm
isn't
sure you're aware
actually.
of. Yeah, and it's
No.
probably based, Nunzio, or in all probability, on previous attacks,
It's
right? I think they're probably well within their rights to restrict certain breeds because they've got a higher propensity to attack, notwithstanding the fact that they've been educated, along with the owners. And Nunzio, the owners of these dogs have got some serious issues if they do attack someone, haven't they?
Of course, look, I'll
What are the
answer-
benefits?
I'll answer that question, but first I just want to go back to the big issue though in this case was that the standard is important because it helps define a restricted breed dog in the sense when they're a crossbreed. And because not everybody...
Which defies the purpose of the legislation, which assumes particular breeds, as you say, are more dangerous than others.
How do you define a crossbreed then?
We may say
That's my
that
question.
on the whole, people who come from the African subcontinent can dance beautifully. Therefore, we assume it's a characteristic of that particular strain of the human species that they dance beautifully.
But they can.
Bull dust!
But they can.
No, this is rubbish.
I've
And
never
if
seen
you-
one that can't dance.
If you don't mind my pointing out, if you are
No, look, I'm not
genuine
trying
about
to
the
be-
breed specific, then there's no point in extending that to a crossbreed, which is not going to behave as you think the breed will. But on the research issue, may I just point out to you, with the greatest of respect, that the American Bar
I've got worse than
Association
that, Moira.
has joined with the American Canine Research Council in proving that no breed has a particular characteristic which can be safely ascribed to a particular animal, and that therefore breed-specific legislation, which has been a worldwide failure, should be gotten rid of, and instead of that we should have legislation which appropriately manages the risk that any domestic animal may be to human beings in close circumstances.
Moira, Nunzio, let me throw this one at you,
Yeah, okay.
right? If I'm walking down the street or visiting Moira, I would be happier to have Moira's Ichiwawa have a crack at my ankle rather than a Staffordshire or a Pit Bull Terrier or one of these Japanese tossers, right? Because I know that my prospects of not walking out with a serious injury or death, as occurred many times, are minimal. What do you think?
Tony, just going back to the last point, it's critical the dog owners have insurance because we can sue them personally for any damages sustained to some individual. And it can be, as I said, Tony, you can take your house from...
Moira, can I just say this? I'm a dog lover. I'm 50 years of age and I've had pets in my household all my life. But I do believe we need the legislation. I do believe that you look at probabilities, that's what the law looks at. And I think that you do need to have certain breeds restricted because your little Chihuahua took some skin off someone's leg, but would have ripped the leg off if it was any of these restricted breeds or one of these menacing type dogs like your Staffordshires and your Pit Bull Terriers and German Shepherds.
Not based on science there, Tony. Okay. That's an emotional response. I understand. However, my Chihuahua could have nipped you in the jugular and you'd be a dead boy in 2 minutes.
Fair dinkum.
So I think there are other ways to do it.
Moira, just lastly, and Nunz, that case that went to the Supreme Court cost the council $200,000 in the legal fees of the people that went to the court, not to mention the council's legal fees, so probably $500,000.
Yeah.
So the legislation is definitely ambiguous, but, you know, it's hard to get a good balance on this, Moira. Can I just ask you, if anyone's got any issues in relation to dogs or pets in general, what should they do, Moira?
Lawyers for Animals run an animal law clinic every Friday, free of charge, from 6:30 p.m. at Fitzroy Legal Service, which is in Johnston Street, Fitzroy. Ring and make an appointment and come and see us. If it's an urgent matter, just come and see us anyway. It's free initial advice. We're the experts.
And viewers, my wrap up to you is make sure you educate your dog, educate yourself, put a muzzle on the dog, make sure they're on a leash and keep them away from people if you think there's some probability of them attacking someone. And viewers, thanks for watching. Nunzio, Moira, pleasure getting you on board. No doubt you're coming back because we've got to go for another round.
Yep.
And viewers, send us your Facebook comments, Twitter, go to our webpage, go to past episodes, and always remember to stay safe.